Alright everyone, today I'm going to be unboxing an Ikelite 200DL underwater housing. But before I get into that, I want to thank everyone that's supporting me over on Patreon. Patreon's a platform where people can support creators with small monthly contributions. If you head over to my Patreon page, I'll have a link in the description down below. You'll find different tiers of contributions you can make, and as you move up in tiers, you get some additional bonuses and rewards and perks for supporting me over on that platform. All of the money that I raise over on Patreon goes to support my work as a landscape and conservation photographer. And my Patreon supporters specifically helped push me over the hurdle or over the hill on this project to start photographing the Adirondacks underwater. And that's what we're going to be looking at today, is some of the equipment that I'm going to be using to do that. So check that out in the link down below, and just really big thanks to the folks that are supporting me over there. So we'll just get right into this. I purchased this Ikelite housing for my Nikon D750. That's the camera I'm going to be shooting with for this underwater photography project. I considered a lot of different options in terms of housings and cameras that I wanted to do this project with. If you want to learn more or hear more about how I settled on putting the D750 in an Ikelite housing, let me know in the comments below and I'll consider making a video about that. So let's just dig right into this. This is the Ikelite housing. So this is the main portion of the housing here in this box. The first thing I'll just say is the Ikelite definitely doesn't put a lot of effort into making their packaging look pretty, which, you know, personally I'm fine with. They're not a huge company. This isn't a big market. It's not like you're buying an iPhone or anything. So it's just really sort of a plain old box with a sticker on the front. Again, this is the 200DL for the D750. So inside we have an instruction manual that, just as you would expect, goes over all of the details of the housing. We'll get maybe more into that later. So good padding here. And then this is the housing itself. Just first impressions upon picking this thing up, it is heavy and big, which is one of the things I considered when deciding to put the D750 underwater, was the size of the whole setup. So the housing itself is pretty substantial in size. The 200DL series has an opaque front. Ikelite housings used to be transparent all around. The front portion of the housing is now opaque, but the back portion you can see through. So that's the housing. There's a little kit with some Allen wrenches, some lube for the O-rings, and it looks like an Ikelite sticker in there. And then the tray and handle. It comes with one handle. You can buy another handle though, so it comes with the right hand handle, and you can buy the left handle, which I did do. I kind of wish it just came with both handles. Just the size of this, I can't imagine not wanting both handles, but you do have to buy that separately. And then there's nothing else in that box. Okay, so in addition to the housing, you need a lens port. So the front of this, you need to mount a lens port onto the front of this housing that's actually going to accommodate whatever lens you have in your camera. And you can get, there's a variety of different ports out there that you can get to put on these. So just as your camera has interchangeable lenses on the front of it, the ports are interchangeable on the front of these housings. So I purchased the 8-inch dome port, and Ikelite has a really good table you can go on their website and look at your camera and lens, or the lens, camera and lens combination you're going to be using, and then what the appropriate port is for that lens. So I'm shooting, primarily going to be shooting, or initially starting to shoot with the 18 to 35, 3.5 to 4.5 G Nikon lens. This is a more inexpensive lens in terms of full frame lenses, and I've decided to go with this because it actually has really good image quality, and it's light, and small, and so it's really going to sort of minimize the size and weight of this whole package. With this lens, you don't need any dome port extension tubes, so if your lens is long, there's sort of little bits that you add between the dome port and the housing that will accommodate that size of the lens. So with this lens, you don't need an extension tube. So again, we have padding, more instruction manuals, more Allen wrenches and silicone lubricant, and then this is the dome port itself. Just get this stuff out of the way. So this is a pretty big addition to the front of this housing. It's 8 inches in diameter, and so that's what's going to mount on the front of this to allow me to put my D750 underwater. So this is a big piece of kit. So it comes with this nice neoprene protector over the front of the dome. This particular dome is acrylic, so I'm gonna have to be careful about not scratching this. Glass domes are more expensive. They're less prone to scratching, but I went with sort of the standard acrylic. It looks like there's a pouch on the back here for putting some accessories in, and then it looks like you can actually mount this maybe without taking the neoprene cover off, and keeping that sort of opening somewhat sealed. It's not perfectly sealed with that little pouch, but it looks like you can mount it without taking that cover off. So those two things will mate together like this to give me the complete housing for this particular camera and lens setup. A few other little bits and pieces that I got along with this. Like I said, they only give you one handle, and I figured I was going to want the other, so this will somehow mount. This will mount in here like that, which will give me handles on either side of the housing. I'll put this all together in just a second. So that's that handle. More Allen wrenches. I have so many Allen wrenches. Whenever you buy anything that needs an Allen wrench, the manufacturers usually give you one, which is great, but you also then end up with drawers of Allen wrench. We'll go over this in just a second. This little piece of kit here is the SLR Zoom Sleeve. So if you're using a zoom lens, this is going to kind of go over the lens and hook into part of the gear operation inside the housing so that you can operate that zoom through the housing. So in here we have, this is the sleeve that has the gears on it. That's going to mate inside the housing. And then there's this sort of this is going to go around, kind of stretch around the lens zoom mechanism, and then there's these little bits of padding that I believe go on the outside here, which then this sort of, actually, sorry, the padding's meant for the inside there. This sort of slots inside this zoom ring. Your lens is in here, so then when you turn this outer piece, it turns the zoom ring on your camera. So that's not 100% necessary. If you have a prime lens you're shooting with, you won't need that. Or if you don't want to use the zoom, if you want to just set the focal length of your lens before you put it in the housing, then you're going to be fine. So the last little piece of gear I have here is the vacuum pump. So the 200DL housing comes with a vacuum valve installed. The older Ikelite housings did not come with a vacuum valve installed. You had to purchase it, and then there was sort of an available accessory port you could install it into. What the vacuum valve and pump together allow you to do is to pull a vacuum on the housing prior to going in the water. And then you can monitor the pressure in the housing through the valve or the gauge on the pump. More product manuals. So basically, this is going to go onto there, and then you can plug this into this valve on the side of the housing here. You can then pump a vacuum out of the housing or in the housing and monitor the pressure in that housing. If you see the vacuum declining over time, then you know you have a leak somewhere in the O-ring system and you need to address. If it holds the pressure, you don't have any leaks, you can pull this hose off that valve will close, and you're good to go. So it's just sort of a security mechanism. You know, when you're putting a full frame DSLR camera worth several $1,000s, especially with the lens added on there, it's nice to have this little bit of additional assurance that when you put this thing underwater, it's gonna stay waterproof and everything's good to go. Another advantage of the Ikelite housings, though, is that you can actually see the seal all around this, the back of this housing, and you can see into the housing so that while you're underwater, while you're shooting, you can, if you see water in the bottom of the housing, you know that you have an issue and you need to get the camera top side and out of the water so you don't completely flood your housing. All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and start assembling some of the parts and pieces to this and see what the whole system looks like when it's put together. So I got everything put together. D750 is inside the housing. I've been able to turn it on. I can use my back button autofocus, which is the primary way I have my camera set up to focus most of the time. Shutter release. I've been able to, you know, capture images, you know, with it in hand. It's heavy, it's big, but I know it's going to produce incredible images. So also use the vacuum pump, pulled a vacuum on it. You know, they say in the instruction manual you can leave it for a couple hours or overnight if you want to be like 100% sure that everything's sealed. But then any major leaks, you would see a drop in that vacuum pressure over the first few minutes. I didn't see anything, so I think it's all nice and sealed up. I'd be confident to bring this thing in the water right now. My only little, like, first sort of ergonomic gripe that I have is for my hand positioning. These are the two primary levers that I'm going to be using with this, to focus and to trigger the shutter release. And they're just at the limit of my reach around this handle here. So I kind of wish I could move the handles over or in a little bit, like just a tad. And I did try and readjust the mounting screws on the bottom, and it sort of shifted it much farther than I would have liked. So yeah, I'll be thinking about anyways and seeing if there's any way that I can sort of shift this over to make the ergonomics of it a little bit better. I mean, everyone has different sized hands. Mine aren't, I don't want to seem like I'm Donald Trump, but I don't have small hands. I don't have huge hands either. But I think that, you know, thinking about ergonomics, it's such a huge part of photography, is being able to access and function your camera, and something we put a lot of weight into in camera bodies. And once you start getting up into that professional level, how everything falls in relation to your fingers and your ability to control that camera comfortably with that and sort of naturally, that's a big part of what makes a camera really appealing. So the fact that I can't get in here as comfortably as I would like is one thing that I'm not excited about right from the get-go with this. But that's not a deal breaker. That's not something that's huge. I can operate it. It's just I could see myself getting a little sort of a little tired of that. And I'm sure there might be a way that I can modify this whole handle rig to move that. It just needs maybe 1/4 of an inch and it would be like perfect. So Ikelite, if you're watching, figuring out a way to fine-tune the adjustment of these handles seems like it would be something that would really be beneficial. Other than that, all of the buttons and dials and everything on the back of the camera work just fine. I haven't had anything that I wasn't able to control. I put the camera in there with it turned off. I was able to turn it on. I can adjust my exposure compensation, ISO, and metering all on these top buttons. That is, you know, given the weight of this out of the water, those things are things that you're not going to be wanting to move back and forth with a lot. So I do use my exposure compensation quite a bit when I'm shooting, so I might look at, there's ways to sort of adjust the buttons on Nikon and customize them. I might see if there's a way I can set it up for underwater use that gives me that at my fingertips a little bit easier. Other than that, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to get this thing in the water and start shooting some images. It is, I don't know if you can see behind me through the window, but there is still snow on the ground here in the Adirondacks. The ice is still on the lakes. Our rivers are starting to open up. I do have a cold water wetsuit, like 38 degrees. So I might be getting in the water a little bit sooner than later, but definitely not right now. It's going to be at least a couple weeks before I get this thing in the water. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button below. If you'd like to see more videos about my journey to start shooting underwater photography, make sure you subscribe, because I will be posting more videos about this whole process as I work through it this summer. And if you want to support my work as a conservation photographer, check out Patreon, like I said at the beginning of the video. It's a great way to support artists. And even if you don't support me, if there's an artist that you really like or follow, or someone on YouTube, a lot of people have Patreon pages, so maybe they're on there and you could go support them. It's definitely important to support the arts. So, and everything that I create as a photographer and in my conservation focused work, I make that available to nonprofits that are aligned with protecting the places that I'm photographing, and work with them to provide them images. So everything I create as part of this project will be made available to nonprofits that are working to conserve and protect our freshwater resources here in the Adirondacks, our fish, our lakes, our ponds, prevent invasive species, all of those things. And if you're part of one of those organizations and you have a project or an idea or image needs, feel free to get in touch with me in the comments below or check out my website and contact me through that. I'd be more than happy to partner with you on a project and get you images that are going to help you be successful in what you're doing. So thanks, and I'll see you later.